Okay, I'm back. I had left off with number 13. I'm now on 14 with regard to the law of nations. Number 14, under section 99, book 2 of the law of nations, general idea of conduct the state ought to observe toward foreigners. We have already treated Book 1, Section 213 of the inhabitants or persons who reside in a country where they are not citizens. We shall here treat only those foreigners who pass through or sojourn in a country either on business or merely as travelers. The relation that subsists between them and the society in which they now live, the objects of their journey and of their temporary residence, the duties of humanity, the rights, the interest, and the safety of the state which harbors them, the rights of that to which they belong. All these principles combined and applied according to cases and circumstances serve to determine the conduct that ought to be observed towards them, and to point out our right and our duty with respect to them. But the intention of this chapter is not so much to show what humanity and justice require towards foreigners, as to establish the rules of the law of nations on this subject. Rules tending to secure the rights of all parties and to prevent the repose of nations being disturbed by the quarrels of individuals. Number 15. Under Section 15, Book 3 of the Law of Nations, as the right of levying soldiers belongs solely to the nation or the sovereign, and that you go back to Section 7, no person must attempt to enlist soldiers in a foreign country without the permission of the sovereign, and even with that permission, none but volunteers are to be enlisted, for the service of their country is out of the question here, and no sovereign has the right to give or sell his subjects to another. The man who undertakes to enlist soldiers in a foreign country without the sovereign's permission, and in general, whoever entices away the subject of another state, violates one of the most sacred rights of the prince and the nation. The crime is distinguished by the name of kidnapping or man-stealing, and is punished with the utmost severity in every well-regulated state. Foreign recruiters are hanged without mercy and with great justice. It is not presumed that their sovereign has ordered them to commit a crime, and supposing even that they had received such an order, they ought not to have obeyed it. Their sovereign having no right to command what is contrary to the law of nature. It is not, I say, presumed that these recruiters act by orders of their sovereign, and with respect to such of them as have practiced seduction only, it is generally thought sufficient to punish them when they can be detected and caught. If they have used violence and made their escape, it is usual to demand a surrender of the delinquents and to claim the person they have carried off. But if it appears that they acted by order, such a proceeding in a foreign sovereign is justly considered as an injury and a sufficient cause for declaring war against him, unless he makes suitable reparation. Number 16. Under 1790 First Congress Act of March 26, 1790, 1 Stat 103. This is a quote. And the children of the citizens of the United States that may be born beyond the sea or out of the limits of the United States shall be considered as natural-born citizens, provided that the right of citizenship shall not descend to persons whose fathers have never been residents in the United States. Now, this is a summary of the Law of Nations and the Congressional Act of 1790. Adhered to by the Founding Fathers as a foundation and rules that determine rights and regulate countries in peace and war, in Section 99, Book 2, again there is a discussion on how the state should deal with foreigners. It could be said peaceful inhabitants must be treated with respect, while belligerents are to be under the rule of law. The key premise is not how to just deal with foreigners, but rather to establish the rule of law of nations on this subject or conduct, with rules securing the rights of all parties. It appears that nations or sovereigns have no right to sell his subjects or foreigners to another. This would be considered man-stealing. Another spin could be conscription or forced or involuntary slavery. It should be presumed that this nation has given order for this, and if the nation has, it should not be obeyed. However, if these recruiters have acted by order for this man-stealing, it is considered an injury to the foreigner or the inhabitant, and thus he, the breaching party, is held liable. Under the rules of law, deception is permitted for the ultimate purpose of establishing security, collective protection, administration, and management of courts, jails, and prisons. It can be summarized then, without full awareness, man consents by his own free will to plummet himself in some jurisdiction where his body is now held as surety. Based upon the above congressional act, it states that those children born of citizens at the time, non-14th Amendment, whether here or somewhere else, are considered citizens, and all benefits and liabilities that attach to such status or title. If the father had once resided in the United States, this information suggests that regardless of any status, free natural inhabitant to the United States, the United States codifies, conscripts, enslaves the title of citizenship with all its benefits, privileges, and liabilities. This would be in opposition to the law of nations. And the introduction, idea and general principles of law of nations at Section 18, equality of nations. And this is a direct quote: since men are naturally equal and a perfect equality prevails in their rights and obligations as equally proceeding from nature. Nations composed of men and considered as so many free persons living together in a state of nature are naturally equal and inherit from nature the same obligations, rights, powers, or weaknesses, does not in this respect produce any difference. A dwarf is as much a man as a giant. A small republic is no less sovereign state than the most powerful kingdom. I gotta stop.